So we want to find the integral of cosine squared x sine squared x. So what's the pattern here? We have a product, obviously, of two functions, which are the trig function, the cosine, and the sine function, that are raised to two powers. And the powers are both even. So that means we're going to have to use our technique dealing with powers of the trig function. And because they are both even power, that means that we're going to have to use the double angle formulae. It's kind of the worst scenario when all the powers of the trig functions are even. And remember that the double angle formula for cosine squared x equals 1/2 times 1 plus cosine 2x, and sine squared x equals 1/2 times 1 minus cosine 2x. That's why it's called a double angle, because you see this is x, and in there is twice the angle, is 2x. So basically, we're going to be replacing cosine squared and sine squared by their expression here by the double angle. So when we do that, we rewrite. So we replace cosine squared x by this and sine squared x by this. And so remember, whenever we do any type of mathematical, well, actually, integration, differentiation, anything, solving equation, anything, the first step is to simplify. In that case, that means to multiply things out. So I'm going to multiply the 1/2 and the 1/2. I get 1/4. And you see you're left with 1 plus cosine 2x times 1 minus 2x. And that's basically the sum and a difference, like is a plus b times a minus b. And so if you were to FOIL all of that, you get 1 times 1, you get 1 times cosine 2x, times negative cosine 2x, so you get minus cosine 2x. And then you're going to get cosine 2x times 1. So this one is positive, so the cosine 2x cancel. And then cosine 2x times cosine 2x, which is cosine squared 2x. So that's why the 1/2 and the 1/2 becomes 1/4. And then when you FOIL out then the rest, you get 1 minus cosine squared 2x. Which is great. We don't have a product anymore, but what do we see? We are still left with an even power of a trig functions. What does that mean? That means we do it again. So here, when we use the double angle formula and we simplify the integral, and if we still have a trig function that has an even power, that means we have to repeat the process. So let's go and see what happens here. So remember, this is what we have. So we're going to have to repeat the process for the cosine squared 2x, meaning you're going to, again, use the double angle formula for that one. So let's see what we have. We have 1/4. So this is what we have left with. And I replaced the cosine squared 2x by the double angle, which is 1/2 times 1 plus cosine. So here you can see it's double angle. So the angle we have was 2x. So we double that angle. So that's why here we get 4x. All right. So that's the double angle formula. But that's, again, what that means is you double the angle when you use it. So we started with a 2x angle, so we now have a 4x angle. And then we just distribute the minus sign, and we have 1 minus 1/2, that's 1/2, times 1/4, that's 1/8, and we have minus 1/2 times 1/4, so we get minus 1/8 cosine for 4x. So what we did here, we used the double angle to rewrite cosine squared 2x as just a cosine by doubling the angle. And then I simplified the integral. So I'm left now with just integrating. And so if we integrate 1/8 is 1/8 x. And if we integrate negative 1/8 cosine 4x, then here the antiderivative of negative cosine is negative sine, but this is not x, it's 4x. So remember, if you were to differentiate, the derivative of cosine 4x will be negative sine 4x times 4. So you multiply, when you differentiate, you multiply the general sum, you multiply the 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 derivative by the derivative of the inside. Well, remember that integration is the reverse process. So here, when you're gonna integrate, then instead of multiply by 4, you can divide by 4. So that's why I obtained the 32 here. And then again, the antiderivative of negative cosine is negative sine. Or if you want, you can just do a u substitution if you're not sure about that. If you want to integrate cosine 4x, if you don't see what happens, right? If you want to integrate this, you do a u substitution where u is 4x, and so that means that du is 4dx, so that means that dx is du over 4. And so you see here, when you rewrite in terms of u, that becomes u, and the dx becomes du over 4. And so the antiderivative of cosine u is sine u. So that's what I said here, that 4 here, that's why the 1/8 becomes 1 over 32, because the 4 multiplied to 1/8. So here you will do, this is the antiderivative, that would be 1/4 sine of u, but u was sine of 4x plus a constant, right? And because we had a 1/8 in the front, that's why it becomes 1 over 32. So this is how you will approach finding the integral of the product of trig function that are raised to only even power.